Okay. Hi everyone. Good evening. Yes, welcome once back. Okay. So let me just start by sharing my screen. Okay. In the earlier session, we were talking about solutions. Okay. We had just finished creating a solution on our own for the first time after making a new publisher of our own. Okay. So now let us move on to these components in these solutions which I was talking about. Right. So I mentioned that your solution is going to have a lot of components. Okay. So first let us take a look, okay, at what actually is already available in your solution. Up till now, you guys have realized that your solution is a uh, package filled with different components. Okay, these are essential to meet the requirements of CRM for a particular business or organization, right? So let us go to our solutions, and here is a solution which we have created today. Okay, so let us take a look at that. Obviously, since we have not added any of the solutions already, any of the components in this, okay, it is empty. Okay, now let us take a look at this sidebar over here. Okay, so you can see there are various components in our solution. Okay, so basically these components are all going to be interconnected, okay, to make sure that the function which is required to be run, okay, for this particular solution, okay, runs off smoothly. First of all, which we will the first component of the solution which we will be focusing on is the entity. Okay, so the entity is basically the first subunit of our solution. Okay, our entity, basically when you have created a solution, our entity can consist of uh, one or more than one different subunits, okay, which will be working together to give out the final output of the solution. Okay, so this entity in itself will also be engaged with a few certain components in itself. Okay, it will also have some subcomponents. So I know it's a bit difficult to understand like this. So let me just take an example of an solution which we have already created. So here is a solution which we have created. Okay, and here in the entities list, okay, you can see there is an entity for employee, there is an entity for employer. Okay, so basically relationships like this, okay, basically things which are related, things which can be grouped together for this particular solution, okay, for this particular function, they are added as entities. Okay, now let us take a look what are the sub components in these entities as well. Okay, so these entities also contain, you know, two different subcomponents. Okay, these are forms, fields, views, charts, keys, okay, some relationships, some business rules, some hierarchy settings and dashboards. So these are the fixed components which you will find in every entity. Okay, along with that, you must be wondering what are these new subcomponents. So a little bit about these as well. So basically, whenever you create a new entity, okay, you are basically calling out a particular data set which is associated with that particular entity name. Okay, so if I'm talking about employees, so all the related data, all the related forms, different views for the employee data, okay, different charts which are being made out of the employee data, okay, different fields which we are asking from the user from the front end, okay, related to our employees, what all questions we want to ask, all these fields are asked as, can treated as questions which we need to be fulfilled from the front end. Okay, then we have some relationships. We will indulge in relationships more. Basically, relationships are certain connectors. Okay, if you want to view entities at different boxes which are part of this entire solution, your relationship is a small thread which is binding these boxes together. Okay, the bindings can be of different ways which we will discuss later. Okay, then there are some business rules, okay, which are basically rules which we are putting up on this data to suit our business practices, our business uh, functions. Okay, then we have some hierarchy settings and some dashboards. A dashboards basically is something which is a final output of the data in which we are presenting different reports, different views and different charts. Okay, so no need to be worried about these components right now. I'm just giving you a brief introduction to these. We will be discussing each and every such component in detail in our further sessions. Okay, so first of all, let us try to create a new entity in our solution. Okay. Apart from creating anything new in your solution, as I already mentioned, there are so many default components already present in your CRM solution. Okay. So we also have the option to add an existing entity. Okay. So if you want to go and add an existing entity, you will see that just like you saw the list of solutions and the list of publishers. Okay. Here is a list of different entities as well. Okay,
So,
there is a display name of the entity and a name. Okay, just
Manya,
like we have already discussed.
Can you please
Yes,
help about this entity part? What actually it is? I was not sure on that. So, what is actually the need of the entity, or what is the purpose of the entity? If you can
just
explain.
one second.
Yeah.
Yeah, just one second.
Sorry, I think I might have missed earlier session, but entity part, I'm not sure what entity is.
So basically an entity is a, like we discussed, a solution. Okay, solution is a packaging of all the components which are required. Okay, to fulfill a certain demand, a certain function of CRM for a particular business. Okay, in that solution, okay, we have various components. Okay, one of those components is an entity. Okay, this entity basically is going to refer to one particular data set. Okay, this data will be in various forms. Okay, as we checked in the other solution, that in this entity there were various components which were defining data. At the same time, they were also asking for data from the user. Okay, so this entity you can treat this as an uh, end-to-end setup of all the components which is required to gather data from the user on the front end. Okay,
Yeah.
and you are the one who will be customizing these fields where you are gathering the data from the user, and in the end you are also having a lot of tools in these entities to present this gathered data in different formats.
So you're trying to say like entity like where we store that kind of a data, right? For example, if I talk about a leave management process, okay. So usually, let us say leave request is there, right? So I needs to create a leave request entity kind of a thing, right? Something like that you're trying to say, right? Just in the layman term, if I would say, it is just a place to store a data kind of thing.
Right. So not just data, it will also be containing all the connectors which are connecting this data.
Okay,
Okay.
okay,
So
like a
basically,
relationship and all kind of thing.
yes, like relationships.
Okay,
Okay. So as I mentioned, our solution is a huge package, okay, which is containing all these different components which are going to perform a certain set of functions for our business. Okay. This entity is a subunit of these components.
yeah, I got
Okay.
it. Thank you, Manu.
Yes, thanks. Thank you for your question. Okay. So let us first of all try to add an existing entity. Okay. So as we saw that there was a list of entities which did come up in the list. Okay. So maybe you want to create your own solution. Okay, where you are adding this entity and making some customizations to it. Okay, or maybe you want to get a particular component of this entity. Okay, so here you can see there is a component type. Okay, so from the component type you can choose that whether you are adding existing entity or adding any other existing component to a solution as well. Okay, so let us take for example, Okay, let us take for example account. Okay, or just let it load. This is your account. Okay, I'll just select it. I can click on OK. Now here you can see different components in this entity. You can see their forms, their views, their charts, fields, keys, relationships, okay, messages in them, business rules, hierarchy settings and dashboards. All the components which you saw present in a different entity, okay, in a different solution, they are present for that as well. Okay, obviously the data in these components is going to be different. Okay, there are going to be different forms, different views, different charts, different fields. Okay, now if I want to include, okay, I can include all the assets by clicking here, add all assets. Okay, since we are just going to show you how to do this, I will be just adding just one. Okay, so here in the form part, okay, I'm going to add the account form. Okay, I'll be adding the account form. Just click on finish by selecting the form. And here you can see the first component in our solution has been added, which is a form of the part account. Okay, now let us add a completely new entity on our own. So here once again, just like your solution name, once again you have a display name, okay, and a name. Okay, we have already discussed, and the publisher prefix which you chose, that was KTS Tech. That publisher prefix is already present in the name part. Okay, so let us create a display name called employee. Okay, and the name, when I remove this, it is already taken up as KTS Tech underscore employee. Okay, what next I can do is I can also add a plural for this particular employee. So in case when there are more of this particular entities, or this particular entity, it will be counted as employees. Okay, in case when I'm choosing multiple records of this particular entity, it will be asking for a plural name. Plural means that when there are more of the same thing. Okay, so then it will be counted as employees. Okay, here you
So
can also add a primary image, which we are
yes.
not adding right now.
So Manya, so the name is also like a kind of a backend informations only, right? Like it would from the
Yes,
database.
yes,
Okay.
yes, we discussed this in the solution part, that the display name is something which you as a user or somebody in the front end is going to use to recognize the particular entity or particular component. Okay, while
Oh,
the name actually is the one which is being used by the system to recognize this
okay.
entity.
Oh,
Okay,
got it, got
once
it.
you have added this display name, okay, you will not be able to change it. Okay, so maybe after employee, if I want to add something else, okay, maybe if I change the display name once I've added it to active employees, okay, the name still remains the same. If I want to make some changes to the name, I'll have to do it manually. So once you have added the display name once, okay, and hit enter, then the name which has been automatically taken up from the display name will remain the same. Okay, we also have different options where we can define ownership, okay, user, team, organization. We will be discussing this when we are talking about our owners and our security roles. Okay, right now we can keep it for the user or team or organization. Okay, moving forward, there are various different displays which are available, different modules which are available in our CRM, okay, which are catering to certain needs of the organization. As you can see, there is sales, service, marketing, training and settings. So if I choose, and whatever I choose from this area, okay, this entity will be displayed in that particular area. Okay, on the front end side. Okay, you have all seen the front end. That side they will be creating this particular entity and it will be on display there. Okay, we also have few more options regarding process, regarding communication and collaboration. We'll be discussing all of this in detail, okay, when we are coming to processes. Okay, so right now we can just keep it like this. Okay, you also have the option whether you can detect duplicates in this particular entity. Okay, so once I have added this entity and I try to add duplicate data, it will automatically let me know whether something is going wrong here and I have created some duplicates. Okay, then we have some tools for auditing as well, which we are not focusing on at the moment. Okay, now you also have the chance to take the accessibility of CRM. We've already discussed that CRM is accessible from Outlook, from your mobile, from your system online, okay, as well as on site. Okay, so apart from this, you can also choose it is if it is available for phone express. So obviously, when you view few applications in your phone, all of the features, all of the functions are not visible. Okay, so here you have the option whether you want this entity to be available for the phone version or no, for the mobile version or not. Okay, at the same time you have you can add if it is available for offline capability or for your particular version or particular view as well. Okay, so you can do that. You in case when you are exporting this particular solution out to someone else, okay, you can also add a custom help URL, okay, where upon the person can click on this URL, okay, and they will be getting a set of instructions, a set of uh, do's and don'ts, okay, or a set of instructions on how they can best use this entity and the fields and the forms and the charts which have been added in it. Okay, so basically it is just like a setup guide for this particular entity. Okay, right now we don't need to add that. Okay, we'll be saving and close.
Manu, can you explain about duplicate detection part? I was not able to follow much. You were saying something about setting. Can you please scroll it down a bit?
Right, just one second,
Yeah,
let it just
thanks.
create the entity. So basically what I was telling you about in duplicate detection. So basically when you're trying to add some duplicate data, okay, so maybe I've added uh, two set of data with the same name, okay, or same display name. It will give me a notification, okay,
Oh,
and it will not let me create duplicate data.
okay, got it, got it.
Okay,
Thanks.
yeah.
Yeah.
So basically in your phone right now, if you want to choose a contact, okay, you can have a contact name of the same name as well, but you will constantly get this that this name, contact name still exists, okay, and you cannot create it of the same name. Okay,
Yeah,
at the
got it.
same time if you're trying to create your own mail ID, okay, and that mail ID already exists and is under the ownership of somebody else, okay, you will also get a notification, and there you will not be able to create your ID with the same name which you want to, because it is already under somebody else's ownership. Okay, so this kind of duplicates, this kind of more than one or more than one of a particular data set or a particular record, okay, is going to be avoided by using this particular feature where we are adding the part where we will be detecting duplicates. Okay,
Yeah.
so let me just remove the account which we have added, this account form. Okay, so from here you have options for two things. Okay, one is the option where you are removing something and the other way you are deleting something. Okay, so when you delete something, what happens is the component is completely removed from the system. Okay, and all the references where this particular component has been mentioned, that will be completely removed. Okay, so we are not going to be deleting it, we'll just be removing it from our particular solution, and it has been removed. Okay, now moving on to our employee. Okay, so here as you can see there are various parts. Okay, we have already discussed that there are going to be some forms, some views, some charts and fields. So basically if I want to divide upon these components, okay, we can say that the fields, the views and the forms, okay, basically your field and your form, okay, these are two parts where you are actually entering the data from the front end. Okay, the field and the form you are creating in a certain manner where you are getting a chance to fill up a certain form to enter data. Okay, whenever you're trying to sign up for something, whenever you're trying to register for something, you're entering your details. Okay, so it's like you're filling up a form. Okay, a form which is asking you for a few details, and based on that detail a data set is being created, which is storing your data in a certain name, in a certain manner. Okay, we have the opportunity, we have the allowance to choose how this data is going to be stored, what data is going to be stored, and how we can allow the users to add this data as well. Okay, your views and your charts, these are going to be things where you are going to represent this data in different formats. Okay, at the same time you have your relationships which will be connecting this particular entity to other entities, okay, into various formats. Okay, as I mentioned, the solution is going to have this entities as some subunits, okay, as some bricks. Okay, so this relationships are going to be connectors between these entities. Okay, then you have some business rules, hierarchy settings, and dashboards. Your dashboards, your charts, and your views. These are the three things which are going to showcase your data, okay, going to represent your data in a very easy to understand format for the user. Okay, when we are dealing with huge records with big data, okay, not exactly big data in this case, but when we're dealing with a large amount of data, okay, then oftentimes we require only a few certain sets of the information to make some decisions quite quickly. Okay, we don't want to go through all of that data, we just want to see few highlights of that data. So in while we want to see those highlights of that data, we will be focusing on the dashboards, the views, and the charts. Okay, now a quick intro. Okay, so in the next session we will be creating some fields and we will be adding them to our forms. Okay, now a quick introduction to what we'll be doing with these forms is, on your backend over here, okay, you will be adding some fields. So basically this field, as you can see, it will be asking for some data from the particular user who is using it on the front end, like their name, their occupation, okay, any kind of information they can ask for. Okay, at the same time you can take these fields once you have created and you can add them to different forms. Okay, so you can have various forms which will be asking for this data. You can represent this form in a different type. Okay, we'll be discussing this in the next session. I'm just giving a
So
brief introduction.
it looks I think the entity is I think a bit bigger component as far as compared to the other component of solution is concerned, right? Because
Yes.
lots of sub
Yes.
components I guess are there, right.
Right, right.
Yeah, sure.
Yes. So basically, entity is where, because data is going to be the most important function. Okay,
Right, right,
how
right,
the data is being handled, how the data is being stored. Okay,
right.
how you are asking the user for the data. Okay, so everything else is going to revolve around how we are processing this data, how we are storing it. So
Like
everything is going to be
how, yeah.
complementing your entity.
Right. Basically, this is where the information is going to store, kind of thing, right? And then I
Right,
think the
right,
okay, okay,
absolutely.
fair. I think this is some one
Yes.
component.
So
I think where we should focus more on that, right? All the sub component, and I think all are all separate module altogether, right? Kind of thing, right?
right,
Relationship is a big
absolutely. So
thing.
our training program initially will be focused on more or less the functions and the different components and entities, and how we will be working upon these different components. They have a lot of customizations. They themselves have a lot of different types. Okay, which we'll be seeing in the next session. Okay.
Sure.
For now, I'll be leaving you with this, that we have
Sure.
some fields which we'll be creating. We'll be adding those fields to few forms. Okay, and these forms will be available on our front end over here. Okay, in our front end they will be available, and from the front end you can manually type in the data. Okay, and then you can get records of this data, you can get charts out of this data. Okay, and you can represent this data into different formats. Okay, so that
Sure.
was all for today. Okay, tomorrow we'll be continuing with the topic.
Thank you so.
Any doubts up till now?
Nothing. I think
Yes,
for
any
me, I'm
doubts?
good. Thank you so much. Nothing from my end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Bye.
Okay.
Take care.
Thank you
Bye.
so much, everyone, for joining. I will see you guys in the next session. Okay. Thank you. Good.